Attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Help Your College-Bound Young Adults Survive Freshman Year. I'm Maura Framian of Carey Magazine, and I'm joined by Ann Kramer of Triangle Whole, Well and Good. Before we get started, I wanted to go over a few housekeeping items for today's webinar. First, please make sure you've dialed in using the phone number provided in your communication email or are able to listen via your PC speakers. You will be in listen-only mode for this webinar. We will reserve some time after the presentation for Q&A. You can submit your questions at any time through the questions box on the GoToMeeting or the GoToWebinar control panel. If we aren't able to get to your questions today, don't worry. We'll forward it to Ann Kramer and she can respond back to you directly via email. If you have any difficulty during the webinar, please click the hand icon on the GoToWebinar control panel to alert a member of our webinar team. Lastly, we are recording today's webinar and will make the recording and presentation available to you in the coming days. All right, so freshman year of college is a transformative phase of young adults, and as parents, you'll want to help your college-bound young adults make good decisions and survive freshman year. The trick is knowing how to stay out of their way and keep your good intentions from accidentally sabotaging their success. In today's webinar, Help Your College-Bound Young Adults Survive Freshman Year, we're going to learn more about this topic from educational specialist and licensed professional counselor Ann Kramer. Ann is also the founder of Triangle Whole, Well and Good, a framework for creating wholeness that can support you for a lifetime. Ann, the webinar floor is yours now.
Thank you, Maura. I appreciate it very much, and welcome to everyone as we begin this webinar. Let me get to our first screen here. As Maura said, I am Ann Kramer, and I have been a licensed professional counselor for over 22 years, and so I've been coaching and counseling quite some time, and I really enjoy working with the 18 to 25 population that we're going to talk about today. It's a great population, but one that is also dealing with very, very changing world, and they have a lot of anxiety. I love helping them turn that anxiety into a positive, bright outlook, and that's what we'll be talking about today. If you're here, it's likely because you and your young adult child are about to launch out into a whole new direction, heading off to college and your freshman year. Yes, finally, freshman year is here, and as exciting as this can be, now the reality is sinking in. Everything is changing for you and your young adult. Freshman year is a challenge, and it is a rite of passage in our society, and one you're hoping they will succeed at, and yet you're beginning to worry a bit, as are they. And that's understandable because this new challenge ahead of them is one that can go from exhilaration to confusion very, very quickly. Here's a startling statistic. The national college dropout rate is 40%. So it's a rite of passage that many do not successfully navigate. Together in this webinar, we're going to explore how to make sure your child is not one of the 40%. The goal of this webinar is to understand what leads to high dropout rates. And also, oh, that's interesting, it went backwards. So it's understand what leads to high dropout rates, and then to support your young child without accidentally sabotaging them. And we'll talk about what I mean by that in a second. And then thirdly, I'm going to introduce you to a whole person framework as a proactive, positive solution and a way to deal with the challenges of the freshman year. Let's get started, because here's what we know, that while the freshman year can be overwhelming, most freshman challenges that lead to dropping out are not academically based. That's right. It isn't usually because they can't handle the classwork. Instead, it is the personal issues. Who am I? How do I fit into this new world? How do I own my own life? This surprises many freshman students as they've spent a lot of time worrying about the academic challenges ahead, but very little time thinking about the personal social challenges. They are not quite prepared for the personal shakeup that occurs as they leave friends, family, and the life they've known for the last 18 years. As much as they're looking forward to getting away from home and on campus, they are a bit shocked to realize that these social challenges will require a significant amount of effort that somewhat competes with their dealing with getting to class and just getting good grades. Since they are personal issues, this makes it doubly hard and challenging because most of us at this age aren't very good at knowing how to deal with personal issues. A typical response to these personal challenges is to divert their attention to drinking, partying, and or finding other ways to avoid and cover up their confusion. Obviously, this isn't the best option and rarely has good outcomes, and it has reached national crisis levels with far too many college students getting off track. Binge drinking, becoming super social at the expense of going to class, or otherwise making choices that can quickly spiral out of control is very connected to that 40% dropout rate. Over and over again as a counselor to this age group, I've heard them express how they got swept up into the college life, tried to find a way to fit in, and get some sort of grounding in a topsy-turvy world. And it was all happening so fast that it was hard to find their own answers, and instead they just went along with the status quo. As a parent, I'm sure you've thought about this and wondered what can be done to prevent this, or if it does start, how to catch it and turn it around. The tricky part in all of this, of course, is that you can't be there watching them every minute as you could have been when they were still at home. But even if you were nearby, I want to tell you, you are not the one to solve this problem. As much as you may want to rush in, it's important to encourage your young adult to face these challenges on their own. The fact is, you have to let them go. This is how they discover their capacities to stand on their own 2 feet. This creates a catch-22 for you. You want to help them, but by doing it for them, you are actually undermining them, as they can only discover their capacity to stand on their own by standing on their own. What today's webinar hopes to show you is a way to support them while staying out of their way. Yes, the temptation is to rush in and make this easier for them, but all you're really doing is making it much harder in the long run. College is a challenge, but it is also the first opportunity to make choices outside the family system when they are still in an environment where there is some level of structure and guidance. This is a time for trying things out, discovering one's capacities for managing one's life, taking responsibility for the outcomes of their choices, and discovering oneself and the reality that in order to have one's life turn out the way one wants, we must make choices and accept the consequences for these choices. If we don't begin to master this self and choice making with awareness of consequences during our college years, we will soon enough be out on our own and have to start doing it then. It is better to master this while in the cocoon of college structure versus putting it off until college is finished and one has entered the big world still unprepared. Recently, I got an email from a mom who is a client of mine. She realizes now that she was far too involved with her child while he was in college and was constantly helping him by finding the solutions for his problems that he felt he didn't want to have to deal with. This became a 4-year process, and then he finally graduated. But now he had just written her a long letter saying that he was surprised at how hard adulthood was, and he didn't think he could handle it. And he wanted to move back home. As she read his letter, she knew that she had somewhat created this. She felt terrible, and as hard as it was for her, she said, no, he could not come home. She knew if she said yes, he'd never master the skills of adulthood, and it would be really, really much more tough on him. If she had to do it over again, she would have insisted he learn how to negotiate his college on his own. So yes, we know there are personal challenges ahead for your young adult child as they arrive on campus. Let's just expect that. But here's another thing we know. We know that universities provide a myriad of services to help your young adult through these personal issues. That's the good news. They care. They really do. But here's the bad news. Too many freshmen do not use them. Just as you have the catch-22 of wanting to help them, but you recognize it ends up sabotaging them, this is their catch-22. that as the young adult begins to feel overwhelmed by the multitude of personal challenges and needs support, they tell themselves that needing this support is its own failure, and thus they refuse to get help. So while the help is there, too often they won't take advantage of it until it is far too late. It's sort of like that picture on the bottom right there. It's a demolition derby. They need to ask for help, but if they ask for help, they feel like they're a failure, so they don't ask for help, and they end up failing. Time and time again, I've asked my young clients if they've been to the student counseling service, and they say no. I ask why, and they say they're too embarrassed to have someone find out they need help. They are so sure everyone is watching them walk in, so they simply won't do it. Crazy, I know, but. So let's review the problem in a nutshell. Freshman year is a personally overwhelming experience for most people. That as much as you want to help them, doing so actually undermines their capacity to discover their inner strength and resiliency. And that the universities do provide services to help them through this, but too many students don't take advantage of them because they see doing so as a failure, and yet without getting support, they may drop out and fail. Putting it all together, we end up with that 40% dropout rate that I mentioned earlier. So solving this problem requires a new approach altogether, one that is available before personal challenges take over, and one that provides a solution that directs them immediately towards positive outcomes in navigating these challenges. And that's what I want to discuss now. As a counselor who has worked with folks in this age bracket, one very important reality is that they are still forming a self. On the screen right now, you're looking at the life puzzle. This is a framework for wholeness that I created many years ago, and I did it partially while I was teaching community college. My students helped me see that what they were looking for and struggling to find as they went through college was a way to define themselves. And what I created was Life Puzzle as a way to help them have a structure. You will see that there are 16 core areas and 5 edges that create the self. Now, the analogy is that life is a puzzle, and it's a way of using that analogy to see how we put our lives together. So imagine at birth, you're handed a box with 10,000 pieces in it. That's your life. And it will take a lifetime to put those pieces together. What's unique, though, is every one of us on the planet is a life puzzle under construction, and we all arrive with no picture on the outside of our box. Each of us has to figure out how we want to create our own puzzle. What you see on the screen, though, is the basic framework. We all have those 16 core areas, 5 edges that create the self, yet no 2 of us will put those pieces together in exactly the same way. Now, just in case you have a small screen or can't quite read those 16 core areas, I want to walk through them just briefly. That we start with responsibility. The key issue in life puzzle making is that we are all responsible for our own puzzle. So this is a responsibility model right from day one. Another piece that's very important is nutrition, and the foods that we eat are really going to impact the life that we create. Exercise is another key component of life puzzle making, that if we consistently exercise throughout our life, we'll end up with a much healthier life overall. Feelings are another piece of our puzzle. We now know that something called emotional quotient parallels intelligent quotient, and the emotional quotient is the capacity to manage our emotions. We now know in the evolving economy that we're going into that the emotional quotient is actually more important than the intelligent quotient, that the capacity to manage our feelings makes us a winner. And when we don't have that skill, it oftentimes will ruin our lives. Thinking is another important part of our life puzzle, and that we're an ongoing and growing journey in our lives that we're always learning. We never stop learning. Another piece in our puzzle is communication. Now, there's communication like I'm doing with you. We're going back and forth, and I'm sharing what I'm learning, and you're learning through this communication. But an even more important communication piece in our puzzle is our internal voice. And that's the one that is constantly yelling at us and yapping, why did you do this, what's wrong with you? And that's something we have to teach ourselves how to be really good at and managing that piece in our puzzle. Relationships are another piece in our puzzle. Very few of us are very good at knowing how to be in relationship, but the life puzzle model becomes a model where we can use it with ourselves and our partners and look at each of our lives in the journey we put together and how we're growing our whole lives. Another piece is parenting and family. Hopefully our kids aren't doing that one just yet. Community environment and how we interface with the community around us and take care of the environment we live in. Sexuality is a big piece. Financial responsibilities, because everybody is going to have to manage money at some point. Working is another piece of our life puzzle. Most of us know that. We've been asked since we were 4 years old, what are you going to be when you grow up? So we all know that piece is in our puzzle. Play and recreation is a balance to work, that if we're going to have healthy lives, we should always add play to it. Special challenges in the puzzle, and that's the piece that deals with any particular traumas or challenges that a human being has that might derail their building a whole life. And so I put it into the puzzle, and when I'm working with clients, if they have a particular special challenge, then we're going to look at it and see how it fits into their wholeness instead of overwhelming their wholeness. Spirituality, as we teach it, is living love for self and others, and then finding meaning is living life in relationship to death, in the sense that everyone is going to die, and the sooner we recognize that, finding meaning is actually putting our lives together in a way that between birth and death, it has meaning and value. And many of us don't realize that we can start that finding meaning process very early in our lives, and not starting at 60 or 65 when we're just about to retire. So you'll see those 16 core areas, and I have used this model with many clients, and what they tell me is that simply by having this basic framework, it is a lifeline that gives them direction. It is a practical, tangible way to know what's needed and see where one's life is headed towards wholeness and a great life. Now here's the reality. We learn very little in school about wholeness. If you look at those 16 core areas, you'll realize that despite 12 to 16 years of schooling, you know more about algebra than you do on how to create a life. This is what leaves us walking into college without surety of who we are and how to build our lives. And this is especially true when we're 18 or 19. Our self is feeling especially vulnerable. Let me show you what I mean in this short video. Great. Well, as I said earlier, we don't really learn much about wholeness, but it is truly the framework for how to really create a great life. But it's a choice to use this wholeness framework. What you see in front of you is the wholeness continuum. You'll see that on the 0 to 5 side, we tend to be reactive, unconscious, and feel like a victim to our lives. And on the 6 to 10 side, we see our lives as physical, emotional, thinking, sexual, and spiritual adventures, and wake up each day to build a whole life. Most of the world lives on the 0 to 5 side, the reactive side, and that's because it is what we see around us all the time. And it is also what your college child is going to do when faced with many of life's challenges. But what I am doing with trying to help kids this age is to shift from that 0 to 5 side to the 6 to 10 side. And the life puzzle model is the framework that they use to build a great life when they're working on that 6 to 10 side. So you'll see, like I said, on the 0 to 5 side, it's a lack of awareness of wholeness, it's reactive, it's doing enough to get by. On the 6 to 10 side, it's much more proactive. You accept every experience of life as part of the whole you are becoming, and you seek every day to build in the 16 core areas, 5 edges that create yourself. What I'm sharing with you is that proactive way to ground your young adult in a practical, tangible focus of building their self at a crucial time in their life when outstanding influences are enormous and potentially life-disrupting. The reality is that the reactive quick-fix choices like drinking, partying, avoiding dealing with real life are readily available on campus everywhere. What's not available is a wholeness framework. Yet when I teach this to folks in the 18 to 25 age bracket, as I said before, they see this as a lifeline. The tricky part, of course, is how to get this in front of them and put it in front of their eyes so that they have it available at this as a lifeline to help them get through this very, very scary time in their lives. The solution I've discovered is to meet them online. To do this, I've created a subscription service that enables me and my team to be able to stay in front of them with consistent messaging for choosing proactive, positive actions as these new challenges show up. And ultimately, we are helping them ground their actions in the wholeness framework of life puzzle making. I developed this online subscription after having worked with numerous college students who had either dropped out or were on the verge of it. And I had to work virtual with them whether I liked it or not because they were usually far out of town where I live. They told me that if they had had the whole person framework that I'm showing you to help them choose proactive, positive options, they would have been able to turn those challenges around. Time and time again, they have said to me, once I had the framework to hold on to, I no longer felt like I was drowning under all these challenges. But again, the key is getting to them quickly and easily. Instead of asking them to walk across campus and ask for help, we show up in their email with a proactive, positive framework that helps them see there are solutions to these dilemmas. I call this online subscription Not Done at 21, Building Wholeness in a 100-Year Life. And the Not Done at 21 is based on the whole person life puzzle model. So why not done at 21? First, let me explain that phrase, not done at 21, building wholeness in a 100-year life. It was chosen for a couple of reasons. First, because repeatedly I had college students tell me that they felt that 21 was a ticking time bomb waiting for them, and they knew it was going to happen just as soon as they were graduating. They felt that they had to really have their whole life figured out. And while your freshman student is likely 18 or 19, they already have in the back of their mind that by the time they graduate, they too are supposed to have figured it out. So I want to kind of bring this and put it in front of them early on. Secondly, when I started working with this age group, I wanted to just up front bust that myth that they were supposed to have it figured out by 21 and remove it from their minds forever and replace it with building wholeness over the lifespan. So not done at 21 became an easy phrase, and actually one of my students said it to me. I'm not done at 21, and he just kept saying, not done at 21, not 21. So I adopted it after that because I thought if he liked it, maybe they will as well. We're using this phrase because it's also part of the reframing we want to do as we help them transform the college experience towards a far broader vision than just getting through and graduating. We are redirecting them to see how what's happening now has relevance for their whole life, maybe even up to age 100. It is important for folks at this age to begin realizing that simply getting through their freshman year and then graduating college is not going to magically finish their life. I cannot tell you how oftentimes people say to me, I just can't wait till I graduate, then everything's going to fall into place. No, it doesn't. And it's good that they start realizing this early on. It helps us work with them to turn the college experience into a more full experience, academic and personal, right from day one. Oh, and by the way, this generation is 8 times more likely to live to 100 than their grandparents. That, too, is a very significant difference that is good for them to start thinking about, even at 18. The old model we all grew up in of, grow up, retire at 65, and die a few years later, that's over. We really now have to plan for a 100-year journey, and that makes for a very new way of living. We feel that the Life Puzzle and Wholeness model helps set that tone. It also sets the stage that as a subscription member, they're part of something that's proactive and positive. So many of my clients have said that this bigger vision of their lives really is a wonderful way to live their lives. So starting from this broader perspective, we then help them understand that this time of their life is a very important time of building self. And as I showed you on the video, we show them how to build the boundaries of self. And once the self is fully formed, it fits within that whole person framework they have in front of them and is available to them for the rest of their lives. There are few people of this age who don't want to learn how to own their own self, because most of us are so anxious and want to find some level of peace and calm. So it's this focus on self that clients tell us makes a huge difference for them at this stage of their life, and they become aware of what it takes to build a self. This gives them the impetus to why they want to take responsibility for building their whole life and turn the college experience into a positive journey that sets them off on the right path. So how do we reach them? That's why we turn this into an online subscription, because we know that, one, folks of this age really like going online. It's really comfortable for them. And two, it is the perfect medium to connect them to positive actions. For example, we show them how to take advantage of the services that universities provide and come as part of their tuition payments. But we do it by attaching this to a positive message that smart people take advantage of these types of services. And so as we're working with them in the online medium, they really get to have a consistency of positive messaging. So with the subscription, here's how it works. First of all, what they'll get is to start a booklet we call Not Done at One, Building Wholeness in a 100-Year Life. And it's a very short book. It's a Socratic dialogue between a counselor and a 20-year-old where they're talking about building self and using the life puzzle and whole person framework. It's a super fast read and addresses the anxiety they're feeling through a positive dialogue. Next, we also provide them with monthly webinars where we focus on how to build the whole self and whole life. And they can watch live or download, so pretty much like you're doing right now. And during the webinar, they can ask questions and get responses immediately. These questions are helpful to all attendees because, again, discovering at this age that others feel confused on how to own a life is a useful awareness. So the webinars become an easy way to learn how to own a self. And they're also short and to the point. Just 20 minutes of learning can go a long way each month. But we make it easy for them to participate and not make this an hour or 2 hours. It's 20 minutes in and out, and you learn something significant about owning your life. As well, each week we send them a motivational reminder that Not Done at 21 is here for them. It's an upbeat, quick connection that will bring a smile to their face, lets them know they're not alone, and a reminder that it is easy to choose. It is as easy to choose a proactive, positive response to life's challenges as it is to give up. Another part of the subscription service is that allows your young adult to ask questions via email and have them answered by a licensed professional counselor. This gives them quick access and anonymity to ask tough questions and know they'll get an answer from a licensed professional. And then finally, if need be, they can request an online coaching session at a very reduced fee. This lets them know that they can talk privately to someone without having to leave their dorm or apartment wherever they're living. So that's what your 18-year-old student gets. And then there's another part for you. So one other important aspect of this program is you. Yes, while you want to give them the freedom to own their own life and find solutions to these challenges, I hope you realize now that you just can't do it for them. But here's what you can do. You can teach yourself about wholeness. So as part of the subscription, you receive a PDF copy of the book, Life Puzzle, Putting the Pieces Together. This is a 275-page book that covers how to create wholeness, how to build healthy edges, and it explores each of the 16 core areas that we build in adulthood. Once you have this concept under your belt too, it will give you the capacity to use it as part of the conversations you'll be having with your young adult and enable you to see them from this new perspective, that they're on their pathway to wholeness too. So for example, they might be telling you a horror story of dealing with their new roommate who has taken over the whole dorm room. And instead of you telling them, you'll call the university and get them moved to a different room, you'll encourage them instead to look at their feelings. Maybe they're afraid to stand up for themselves and confront this fear and strengthen their self. But if they resist it and keep wanting you to fix it, you can now insist that this isn't the best, but that you believe they're capable of handling this. Then you might suggest that the two of you work together to write out what your child's going to say to the roommate to find a solution. But of course, your child then has to take the final step and actually talk to their roommate. But on the sidelines, you can encourage it by reminding them that this type of experience will happen many times in their lives. Mastering it now will strengthen their life. And in this process, a win-win occurs. You're helping them survive freshman year and also seeing your child grow up into a whole self. It is a positive way for you to show them you trust that they're growing up and mastering their life. Surviving freshman year is what we all want your young adult to do. And since 40% of freshmen drop out, we know many do not. But with a subscription to Not Done at 21 for your young adult, you take a positive step that will present proactive, tangible information to them that gives them the grounding they need to strengthen self and master their freshman year. Now here's the thing. This one-year subscription is only $60 for the whole year. That's right. It's a very affordable way, about $5 a month, for you to support them and gives you peace of mind that you are giving them a whole person framework that will support them for the rest of their lives. Now, I don't know if there's any questions that people have, but if there are, this might be a good time. Can you tell more if anybody's written us any questions? We're okay. Okay. So what I'm going to say at this point, if you would like to learn more about this, you can contact me, or if you have questions, sign up. Just send me an email at Ann@LifePuzzle. If you want to learn more and you want to ask some questions, I'm there through that email. Okay. I really appreciate you participating. Our goal with Not Done at 21 is really to empower them not only to survive their freshman year, but to thrive. It's an important changing time for them, and it's an important changing time for you. Yes, freshman year is on its way, and within a month or so, your young adult will be on campus and beginning a great new adventure. I hope what you've learned today has provided an empowering step that you can take to ensure they not only survive their freshman year, but thrive in it. So I thank you for being part of this webinar, and I look forward to hearing from you through the email if you'd like to talk some more about this whole program.
Thank you, Ann. And for those of you, if you do have any questions right now, remember you can send us questions. Just click on the questions box in your GoToWebinar control panel. That way, if there's anything that might help the whole group, that would be great. And just a reminder, we are recording this, so you will also have this presentation sent to you once we're done. All right. Does it look like we have a question? Oh, good.
So the question I see is, with so much communications technology today, how often do you recommend calling a student? I'm assuming you mean you calling your own child. Is that, if I hear the question correct? I really recommend that once your child gets on campus, that you limit calling to like once a week. I know it's really tempting to call every single day, every single day, every single day, and they get used to that too. But in the process of doing that, what you're really doing is keeping a tether to them, and they're not making that break and discovering their capacity to go out and meet new friends and take things on and then share that once a week with you. Instead, they're staying tethered and sort of avoiding oftentimes. And it's just, I think once a week is about right, and then people start to really know, hey, I am in a new place. I really am, and mom and dad are letting me go. I need to take this on. Okay? Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you for that. There we go. All righty. So it doesn't look like there's any more questions more. Maybe we should just go ahead and wrap this up, and appreciate everybody for showing up and taking on these ideas. Again, you can always email me with your questions more one-on-one, and I can go into more details as well. Again, I appreciate everybody attending.
Thank you all for attending.